I hope you guys had a wonderful week. And this time we're going to start with something a little bit different. And we're actually going to talk about not making an effect itself, but actually how to make the lotting system for our particle systems. So we started with learning about the particle engine inside of Unreal. And then we dove into texturing and materials, and then tying those with the actual particle effects. We learned some particle effect techniques and how to construct our artistic skills and making our particle effects. And now we are going to the last part, which is actually optimizing our effects to work in a production environment and make sure our effects are running in performance and, try to destroy them as least as possible, because sadly it's that part that you have to part ways with your precious in a way. So it's that part that you're sacrificing a bit of visual quality to ensure that the game will run, which is a little bit painful, but hopefully with a little bit of knowledge beforehand and some techniques, you will be able to minimize that. The good news is that as far as hardware keeps improving, you actually need to do this less and less. It's not as hard anymore to make a game run optimized. So things are improving. Also, the system I'm going to use is to show you guys is actually the lotting system for particles using Cascade, which is a little bit antiquated, I will not lie, but it's the one used for the vast majority of the industry. There's other places I've worked on that have a lot more sophisticated lotting techniques, or you would not even call them lotting at all. They have different systems to ensure that particles will not kill performance, and you would run with maximum visual quality. But I will not discuss them here. I will just discuss the actual system from Unreal, since it's the standard in the industry. So with that said, I'm going to create a particle effect, a new particle effect. I'm actually going to call it particle test lotting. So I'm going to drop it into the level. And I'm going to open it. So we have our particle system here. And a few things I'm going to do right off the bat. I'm going to change my size to be a constant. And I'm going to make it quite big so we can see it well. And I'm not even going to worry about putting a shader or a texture on this. I think this will do for the example I wanted to show. So, probably even bigger than this. Also, I want to make sure my lifetime is constant, 10 seconds, and we can make them shoot up a little bit more. So I'm going to put 1,000 and maybe 500. So we can definitely see, something will happen. So we have our particles here. I'm actually going to unselect it so we can see it a bit better. And start talking about lots, LODs, level of detail. All right, so to find that setting in Cascade, it's over here in the right upper corner. And as you see right now, we have 0. So basically the way it works by distance. And if you're far away, you would see one version of the effect corresponding to the LOD associated with the distance between the camera, or sometimes between the player. It depends. This system is using the player camera, or the camera we're currently on. So it uses a different LOD for a different distance. So if you would get closer, you would get a different LOD. And maybe even closer, you would get a different one. Because the way to measure how expensive particles are, you have to measure shader complexity and overdraw. and number of particles being calculated. Yeah, there's a bunch of different calculations and different statistics that make particles more expensive and less expensive. I'll probably make a video about that soon, probably the next video actually. So, but for now, let's just focus on the making the LOD. So the basic theory is, you know, if there's too many particles, or if you're further away, you don't need to see so many of them, so you would decrease the number of them. If you're closer, you probably need to have more details, so you're actually going to increase the level of detail, or LOD, you know. And to control that, we're going to use this LOD system here. So LOD 0 would be my highest LOD in this case, or the lowest. It kind of lets you do it both ways. So, but I'm going to consider it, you know, like 0 is the closest to the camera. The further away we go, we're going to increase the LOD. So right now I only have one particle emitter. It works for, you know, if you have multiple particle emitters, it will work for them. Just make sure that when I click here, and now if I move, you'll see number 1, and you'll also see that this changed a little bit. So when it changes like this, it means it's not the original state. So this is the original state, means it could be either the lowest or the highest LOD, maximum level of detail or minimum level of detail. It's up to you how you actually set it up. But since I said this is my maximum, every time we go up, it's going to decrease in level of detail. Yeah, or, you know, it doesn't need to be level of detail. It could be anything else. Like if sometimes this stuff is not very visible in the distance, you know, I would use LODs to actually use it as a trick to make it more visible in the distance, you know. Even if the particle count is the same, I would like thicken it or something like that. So you don't need to just basically use it to change particle count. You can pretty much change anything for your advantage. So, but, you know, let's stick with what's mostly used for now. So level 1. Level 1 would be, you know, like once we are somewhere here, I would spawn level 1, or I would switch to level 1 LOD. And to get to LODs, it's kind of weird and kind of hidden. You have to click the black space here. And then you will see here we have an LOD section. This means 0 meters, or I think it's meters, the Unreal units. But 0 Unreal units to the camera means you're going to have LOD 0. This one we will specify a number, and that number would be when it switches the particle system. So I actually had to start a new scene because the other level I'm using for showing the environmental effects, it crashes when I start the game. So it was not helping to showcase the LOD system, very honestly, because as I was mentioning as I was recording, even though I canceled that recording, is that this actually in Unreal only works in play mode, which is very unfortunate in my opinion, because you cannot test it in the actual editor. You have to actually go into the game and test it there. So what I did, I set it to 500, so it's 500 Unreal units, and the LOD 0 is set to 0. LOD 1 is going to charge in when we are 500 units away from it. And another thing I did was when I switched this is our original one, and this one with the concrete texture is the LOD 1. I right click on spawn and I said duplicate from highest. So it's going to duplicate from the highest LOD level, which is this guy here. And then you can specify the difference between one and the other one. So what I did, I set the spawn rate to 0. So what happens is, when I go into the game, my particle system is here, because we are at least 0 or close to 0. And as we approach 500 units far away, it's going to switch back to spawn 0. See? So if we get closer, it spawns. If we get further away, it just stops spawning. And it's not like it pops out or anything. So it actually lets the particles live. So it's quite nice in that sense. All right. We actually can, you know, make this a bit more realistic. And instead of spawning 0, it would spawn, maybe it would spawn like half of this. So it would spawn 10. And as it goes far away, since we have less particles, but we want to kind of keep a consistent volume, we would make the size twice as big. So it would be 50. Yeah, well, we'll go with this for now. And then at another LOD, so LOD2, I would make also this duplicate from higher, or share from higher. You know, you have a bunch of different options here. But I will just go with highest because I want to use the original one. So this one, the other one was 10, this would be 5. You know, it doesn't have to be, but just use your own judgment to do what you think is best. And you could always tweak other stuff here too. Increase lifetime, whatever you want to do, it pretty much accepts anything. And I'll make another one even. So I'll make number 3 again. Share from higher, share from highest. Sorry, duplicate from higher, highest. Set to 0, and this one is dead. Okay. 1 full particle emission. 0. 1 is half, double the size. 2 is half of number 1 with double the size, or close to that. And then particle log 3, or 4 in this case, would be nothing. And I'll make sure that I'll set my distances here too. So 100 meters, or in real units, and 1500. So if I play the game, all full power, I could actually put a different color so we could see it more evident, but I think you guys get the idea. So you see they switched, so they're bigger now. I go back further, they're even bigger, and if I go really far away, they disappear. This is the basics of the LOD system. You know, and as usual, you can, you know, check different values here. You can, if you delete them from here, hit the little delete button here, they would disappear from here. You can check how often it actually checks for the LOD. Right now it's a quarter of a second. This, you really don't need to mess up with these. Right now, every fourth of a second is going to check to see which LOD you are. If you were like in a game that you would be like flying an airplane or a spaceship that you're moving like really fast, like a lot of units at a time, maybe you could crank this up or lower it down in this case. So you would make it, you know, a tenth of a second, so it's more accurate, so it checks quicker. But of course, this would come to an expense because you're checking every tenth of a second to see if the LOD, which LOD you are in. So it's more calculations the computer needs to do. So it, overall, you know, you're actually making it cheaper, well, hopefully, using the LOD system, but at the same time, you're increasing the cost. As if it would be 5, that's one calculation every 5 seconds, so that's extremely cheap. The 25 is usually a very good number, because usually you're not doing any kind of really fast movement, you know. So that's a pretty good number. It's not too taxing on the CPU either. But if you think that your particles are, you know, changing too fast, or not changing fast enough, you can always change that number. So yeah, it's a pretty good, robust, very widely used tool in the industry to make sure particles counts don't go overboard. It's not the most effective one. Definitely very time consuming because you need to set up LODs for everything. There's definitely better solutions nowadays, but you learn this, you're a pretty good spot. When I started, when I joined the gaming industry, I had an idea how this worked. I really didn't know how to use it in Unreal, but I had a general idea of how it works. So having that is definitely beneficial for you to use this effectively. And yeah, just think outside of the box. Like, don't just use this for killing particles off and doing this stuff I just did. Make sure you use it for more creative uses as well. Because I do actually find it useful for that kind of purpose more than actually for tweaking performance nowadays. So yeah, that's the basics of LODing. So I hope you guys understood. I hope I was clear. If any questions, just let me know. Alright, for the final lesson in the course, we're going to turn this scene into a rainy scene and completely change the environment. So let's start with actually increasing the fog, because if it's going to be raining, I want to see some more fog on it. Let's see what else we can do here. Let's see if this actually changes anything. This might be a little bit too much. Yeah, this is not. And this is probably going to be it. So I need to change the lighting. Lighting. It's going to be raining. Probably don't want the sun to be so prominent, and I want to play more with the indirect lighting scattered from the clouds. Experimenting until I find what I'm looking for. Which I can't find. Okay, it's better. See. So if we go back, really far away. Okay. So let's see. It's this one. Let me change this. Horizon color. Not really doing much or anything at all. Just quickly checking what each one of these things do. I find it's quite a good way of testing stuff out, since I'm not very familiar with the lighting system in Unreal. And I'm definitely not familiar with the system that the creator of this level did. So I'm just quickly moving sliders up and down and turning off and on. So I can quickly assess what each thing does and tweak it accordingly. Yeah, right now I just want to make it a dark sky, as cloudy as possible, and I'm also going to crank up the fog. I kind of trying to go for like a more bluish tone. Here's the sun that I need to either get rid of, or I need to kind of make it more diffuse lighting. So as the sun is getting covered by the clouds, the sun rays. Trying to desaturate it, maybe tint it a little bit. Yeah, that seems to be a bit better. More in line with what I'm thinking. Clouds are moving way too fast now. It's like a storm going on there. Which actually is not too bad, but still doesn't feel like it's rainy. So I'm going to compile the lighting. Build the lighting, I mean. See if that would help. I'm going to start introducing the fog. It's pretty cool to be able to do this in real time. That's quite a lot of fog. Kind of need to tweak it a little bit so it doesn't get so sharp. I definitely want it to be quite foggy. Maybe not as much, but that looks pretty good. Just make sure it's a bit more reasonable. That's cool. But there's some artifacting with the windows and with the other particles. Looks kind of weird. It's probably because they have their materials are not set up to fog properly because they're transparent. All right. So I'm going to start creating the particle system now. Now that we have our scene with fog. Still building the lighting. I'm going to go ahead and start creating my particle for the rain. So that's going to be my rain floor. Now I'm going to work on this in sections. So usually when you're working on a game, they usually has its own system of rain, which could be GPU based or CPU based, but it's more like a tileable system that goes all over the place or in a region, and then it with the occlusion from the buildings, it doesn't draw rain in those areas, or sometimes you actually have to make volumes by hand and kind of model them around the places, avoiding interior places or places where the rain would not go. And that's kind of what the approach we're going to take here. There's other approaches like making a cylinder, making different sheets with the material, but we're just going for particles because it's more dynamic. I'm going to choose the location because I kind of want it to be square, because squares, or cubes I should say, are more easy to model around the geometry of the levels. Just making sure it's going to be big enough, because I don't want to make like 1,000 copies of this emitter, because then, you know, I want to make sure I have a really broad area to work with, so I don't need to copy and paste many of these. So I want to make sure this is pretty big. So we have something going on there. I also crank up the number of particles because I want to make sure I see what I'm doing here. Not so worried about performance at this stage. So it's going to be the splashy particles when the raindrops fall. I'm going to convert this to GPU particles. It's a little bit too big since it's going outside of the bridge. Another way I could have done this, but it's more expensive, is to actually have the rain particles fall, and when they collide, they would actually spawn one of these. But that's overly complicated and overly expensive. So it's definitely not the greatest of approaches, honestly. Kind of getting stuck there. There's some issues with the rendering of these particles. I'm pretty sure I know why. I think it's the bounce from the GPU particles causing this. But first, I'll fix the size of the emitter. Make sure it fits in my bridge. And that's probably going to be the scale I'm going with. I can start cranking it down since I know the actual limits now. So I'm going to change the quantities to be something a bit more reasonable. It's kind of slow because it's still building the lighting as I'm working, which is nice. It's a nice feature to have. But it seems like it's slowing down my computer a little bit. And I can definitely see the windows through the fog, which is quite annoying. Seems like it's stuck on 6%. I kind of want a little bit more. I want this to be quite a little bit of a violent rain. Just keep tweaking numbers until I find something that I like, which most likely will change once I add the texture into these splashy particles. So saving. All right, let's take a look. Make sure I can see it. It's really hard to select. So good thing we named it. So I'm going to start duplicating this. Oops. Well, might have just put it there. Still a little bit too big. I'm gonna try to kind of squeeze it just so slightly. I don't want to scale this too much, otherwise it's gonna make my particles have a different scale. And I don't want that. So duplicate it another time. Move it up so it's not getting sunk into the floor, because the floor is not perfectly flat. Rotate it a little bit, scale it. See, when I'm doing the scaling operations, I'm very slightly to ensure that, you know, my particles don't become distorted, and that the math applied to the particles motion is still consistent. If I start scaling this too much, then it's gonna look very incorrect. All right, so we made the rain stop once we get down there. It's getting occluded by that space there. But even if I was using a system that kind of would occlude buildings and stuff like that, it's still not perfect. They still need to do a lot of manual touch-up. always. Like Uncharted 4, I had to do a lot of this too. Believe me or not. Yeah, this is maybe a bit too much scaling. Just trying to figure out if you can see it or not. It might be okay. Kind of pushing the limit there. And these ones are kind of floating, so I'm gonna move them down a bit. I definitely want to see them, otherwise there's no point. Try to grab them, move them down a little bit. I'll need to rotate it a little bit as well. So it's nice that it's actually not flat. It's kind of hard surface. I mean, in terms of terrain elevation and curvature. So it's a pretty good example of something you would find in a real situation. Or hopefully the levels you're gonna be doing this will actually be kind of flat, like, you know, city or ceilings, like Uncharted Lost Legacy, which was mostly flat. The level in the rain, the first level. So that was nice that most of it, not all of it, was flat. There was a lot of ceilings and roofs and stuff like that had to do a lot of manual tweaking, but for the most part, like big surfaces, it was usually flat, so that was nice. I'm gonna fix the bounds because I'm tired of seeing this thing kind of flickering. 1500 is a 3000 is a good value. So try that. Make sure it's set to fixed bounds. And it seems fixed. Keep adjusting it. Also, you have to think, like, if it was in production, this, you would spend hours modeling this after this, and the next day it could look completely different. So you need to kind of adjust and tweak, delete, and make new ones. Make new shapes, make new sizes. All right, let's keep going. So our splashy particles. Let's see. If there's any texture here I can use. I'm gonna create a material. Call it raindrops or raindrop. So we can visualize which ones we already working on or not. They're a very simple material to start with. Give it low opacity. And apply the material. I actually need to just drag and drop it there. compiling. And it's pretty dark. Actually more confusing than it was, I would say. Well, it's a little bit more visible, which is always good. I do have some difficulty with the crosshair material from Unreal, so just going to put this close to white, so it's a lot more visible. And maybe even put a texture, so it's not just a square. Apply this, save. All right. So also it looks like there's a lot of seems very flat on the back part. See those lines there? I think I need to move the emitters a bit more close together. Just trying a different texture. I'm gonna start making the particle rain volume, which is actually going to be the rain element falling. So I'm going to pretty much set this up as I did for the floor, but I'm going to do a bigger one. Since, you know, falling rain doesn't have the same problem as the... I don't need to model it after the bridge. I still need to be careful so it doesn't, doesn't go through the buildings or stuff that it shouldn't go through. But other than that, it's a lot easier than the ones that actually have to interact with the floor. So just going to make this pretty big. There's a little mistake there. And I'm going to come down and increase the maximum count because I don't want it to run out of particles. It's GPU particles also. Hey, that's quite a bit. And I want to make sure I use the constant acceleration. So gravity is pulling down my particles like it would for real rain. I still might tweak this. Maybe I will not use actual gravity for this. It really depends on the look I need to get. Even if it's not physically accurate, whatever has the best result. That's the artist correct. Make sure it's stretchy. I'm going to quickly apply the material that we did for the raindrops, for the splashy particles. It's a very large emitter. Let's increase it a little bit the lifetime. I need to make sure that it at least lives enough to hit the floor. Not much more than the floor, but at least hit the floor. So let's give it some velocity and some randomization. Yeah, that seems pretty better. Looking for the bounds. This is a very large emitter, so I want to make sure that I have a very large surface to work with. Large volume, I mean. Save it. And there's a lot of rain going through the floor right now. We definitely don't want to waste particle calculations going all the way there. So I'm going to keep cranking down the lifetime. Yeah, seems a lot more accurate. And it's still coming from the sky, so. I'm gonna get rid of the concept of acceleration at some point. Setting local space so I can actually move the rain, and it's gonna move with my emitter. So I don't have to wait to be updated, or I don't have to reset it. It's going through the buildings a little bit, but we're not going inside those buildings, so I don't care. Just want to make sure it's not touching the places where we would be able to walk through in the floor. Just checking to see if it goes too much underneath the floor or not. The least the better, but I want to make sure that there's some safety net there. It's okay if it goes a little bit below, because what I want is to kill it as soon as it goes down a little bit, so we never have like rain disappearing in midair. So it's already starting to look a lot better. Still not as not dense enough, so I'm gonna keep tweaking this. It looks kind of weird. Save it. I'm gonna change the opacity. See how that looks. Because right now they're really opaque. So they're still looking a little bit too opaque. And grayish. Just doesn't look like very good rain. I'm also gonna change the texture to something a bit more raindrop like. This should be a bit better. Which still honestly looks a bit weird. Especially the ones closer to the camera. I need to tweak the values to make sure that it's never as round and thick close to me. That seems a little bit better, even though I still see occasional the fat drop. Yeah, it's still not really working. Okay, that's kind of cool, but maybe that was too much. I want something in between. And now I'm tweaking the numbers, because I want it to feel more dense. At the same time, I don't want to increase the particle count much. I'm just testing to see if it would help or not. Even though, honestly, this is GPU particles. As long as there's not much overdraw, it doesn't really matter. You can even spawn 1 million of these. That feels a bit better. Still think it's a bit too many particles, but we'll tweak as we go. So I need to make sure that the amount of particles falling down kind of matches the ones I have in the floor, so it doesn't feel like one is a lot more than the other one. Still need to fix those emitters in the background, because they look really strange. It's kind of bothering me. I'm going to keep tweaking the shader a little bit. Play with some refraction. because it looks nice when the rain is refractive. It kind of increases the cost a lot, but if it makes it look a lot better, maybe it's worth the cost. We'll see. So just some very simple refraction. I'm not using lerping anyways at the moment. Just want to see how it looks. So this is going to be my raindrop refractive mask, and I'm putting two values here. One is going to be no refraction, and almost no refraction, and one more refractive. And I used a soft one to make sure that there's a lot of different gray values there, so we would see more refraction other than just a pure black and white one, because otherwise, since the pure and black and white one is kind of like the mask as well, the alpha, I would not really able to tell when there's a lot of refraction or not. Also going to delete the emissive. I want to make it sure it's going to base color. I don't want it to be glowing raindrops. I can even try one of these. Maybe let's try the fire one, because there's a lot of different shades and tones. It might be good for refraction. I don't know. It's just a test. I can definitely see that the refraction working there. Seems to be working quite decently. So I might leave that one as it is, since I don't. This way I don't need to import another new texture. It's just kind of crazy to use fire for water, but as long as it works, doesn't really matter. As long as it looks good and it's cheap and performant, nobody cares. Alright, so it is working. I feel like it still can improve a lot. It was just I was tweaking the shader to make it look more wet, but I ended up not doing anything, so. I think the lighting changes actually work enough to make it look wet. I'm gonna make sure that the two-sided is on, because I still don't see enough rain. It should not be necessary since they are billboard facing, but just for safety, I like to turn double-sided on. You never know. Especially if you use this material in a different context, where you have a locked axis. It's definitely good to have double-sided on, I think. Otherwise, suddenly your particles are all missing and disappearing, and then you have to walk to the other side and you're like, oh, actually, they're there. I just can't see them. Okay. We got our raindrops. They're a little bit nicer. Still, it's very hard to see them now. So I might just have to crank up a little bit the emissive so I can just push them. I'm just using very simple tricks to see if I can get a little bit more rain for less cost. Other than, increasing the amount of particles, just to want to make them a little bit more visible. Yeah, it's not really doing what I want. Yeah. Meanwhile, while that's working, make another texture here. Very simple ring texture. Something like this is cool. Maybe I'll add maybe I could add another one. Nah, just one is enough. My ring texture. Import my ring texture. Let me take a duplicate of this raindrop material, even though I probably will change it a little bit. Let ring. Probably don't need refraction for this one. I might just leave it for now, but I don't think we will be able to see it that well, honestly. Here's our ring. And I want to go back to this emitter. Okay. And I want, so this is the the splash. And I want this one to be the ring. This I definitely want only one particle. Sorry, one loop. And one particle. All right. And I also want this to be this way. It's not supported. Alright, so this is an issue with Unreal. It doesn't support this type of events from GPU particles. So we're gonna hack this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna duplicate this, delete this guy here. So now it's still doing the particle, but it's not a GPU particle anymore. But instead of doing 900, I'm just gonna do 300. Okay? And I'm gonna do a generator. Generator. I want to be at the death every time. Okay, custom name, death. So events spawn. Actually, we don't need this. And I want to spawn a constant of 1. And the event name is death. All right. So now, as you can see, it's spawning. Oh, shoot, this one. They're spawning there. Okay. Also, I want this to be a lot faster. All right. And I also want to grow this over size. For the size, I'm going to leave it as a vector constant curve, because I just want 1. I'm not sure what's a good size. Maybe bigger than this. I want to grow it over time. Just put something here, and then I'll control it better with the scale. I also want this to be Locked access. Z. It's not showing. For some reason it's not showing. Let's see if it shows now. Could be that's inverted. No. It's kind of weird, but it's not showing. It'd be pretty bad if it only works during runtime. That would be sad. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not showing. Maybe it's negative. It's not showing at all. Well, yeah, I cannot play the game because the game crashes. It's working here. It is working here. Sadly, it's not working there. Oh well. Okay, so the idea, you know, as this would die, they would spawn the rings, but since it's not working, it's gonna look a little bit less interesting. But I guess we have to do this. I wonder if it's because it's not... Okay, so... It's kind of weird. Not sure why it's doing that. I think it's still bugged, but... Also, I should not be doing this way, because it's very hard to debug this way. So actually, I'm gonna just browse this and assign the new texture, the new material, sorry. Or I could make it a different color. See, right now it's only spawning in the middle. It's not sending the events. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's working. Unless I'm forgetting something. Unless I'm forgetting something, I believe it might be... It might not work if we're not playing the game. Well, I've been messing around here with the with this thing, but I can't really get it to work in the viewport. I don't know if it's a bug or if I'm forgetting something. It's kind of annoying. I even changed this and this, but I still cannot get it to work. And I think I did everything. Yeah, this is nothing. I don't know if this will work. I don't think it will. Nah. It's not the case. So sadly, it's not really doing it. I don't think this has nothing to do with it either. All right, so if this doesn't work, I'm gonna get rid of this. I find a different way of doing this. Might not be as accurate, but sadly, doesn't look like there's any other option. If I find the solution, I'll make another video showing how to fix it. But for now, it's one thing. If something is not working, I just keep moving forward, and then eventually, I always try to come up with a alternative to make things work, because it's not good to stall, and if you hit the wall and you just stop, that's like the worst that can happen. So I just like to keep moving forward, and that helps me be very fast and very agile. And then, meanwhile, I'll try to find a solution for this by other means, asking people or looking online or researching, reading documentation, stuff like that. But I definitely don't want to spend too much time in something it doesn't work after a few tries. So right now I'm going to come with an alternative. If I can find a better solution, I'll fix it. So now we have the rings. Actually, so since we don't need this to be non-GPU particle, I'm actually going to duplicate this. Oh, actually, I just realized there's probably, I believe there's a way to kind of fix this in a different way. See if I can find the spawn. Not looking for the seeds, unless I'm confused with the engine that I'm using. I could swear there's a seed mode. So if the seed match, then the location or the particle is going to emit is the same. So basically, it's instead of setting an event and when this particle is born or dies, get to create the actual splash ring, it would actually be just born in the same place. So that might be another alternative, and actually cheaper than the version I was doing. Like a fixed seed, so the seed is always the same. Okay, so ring material. This one is going to be locked axis. See? Okay, good. That's what I was looking for. Make sure. This is also. So it's going. Even though it looks really weird. It does look a bit weird. I think it's hitting the limit. Seems like it's doing some weird thing here. Make sure that particle color, I'm going to multiply the alpha into opacity. I'm going to kill the refraction on this because I don't want refraction on this. So that's our new ring drop. Make sure that my alpha is 1 at the beginning and it's 0 at the end. Perfect. Actually, I can even add another one. So it's 0 at 0, it's at point 2 is 1, and then at point 6 is 1. And when it hits 1, it becomes 0. Okay. Also, initial velocity I don't want. Initial lifetime. It's growing definitely too much. Maybe something a bit more moderate. Might be too small now. Size scale. Actually, yeah, this is fine. It's a bit too big. Just double. Okay, that's good. So meanwhile, I found out how to do the seated mode. So I come here and convert this to seated. And since it's that, I'm gonna make an instance of this. Control. Actually, I think it was Shift. Shift is instanced. Make sure the seed is the same. I guess. Okay. Okay. Probably. Okay, so it is working. I think. Sort of. Not working 100%, sadly. Yeah, well, it's a bit closer, but still not perfect. Anyways, so like this. We don't need this. Okay. Yeah, I wish I could have a spawn that was seated too. In theory, it should be the initial location, the one that actually matters. So fixes it. Okay, so that's. I think that is correct. Yes. Okay, good. So now it's correct. Every place the splash happens, we have a little ring. Sadly, that means that they need to match in terms of pretty much everything. It's gonna make the ring a bit bigger. Okay, and also make because of the so make it stay a bit longer. For some reason I'm gonna make it from 0. It's very slow. I cannot see. Yeah, it is not growing. Just is annoying. So try that again. So that works. Okay, now it's working. And I'll go back. 0.1. Yeah, it's a little bit too fast. I think a lot of them are getting lost in the terrain. That's okay for now. At least we see that it's kind of working. Maybe I'll even increase this a little bit. So we have a bit more to work with. Just gonna make sure I don't hit any limits. Actually, the lifetime might be causing a bit of an issue there. Because if it's random, I'm not sure if it's going to have the same random time for both of them. So just want to make sure all of them are working. Okay. So this is working. I'm going to close this one for now. I also think the ring is a little bit too sharp. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a blur. It was looking a bit cartoony. Okay, so now it should be a lot more reasonable. And I also want to have the same, but this one would be, let's start at 1 and I'm going to end at 5, for instance. Yeah, without the randomization in time, it might look a bit weird. Yeah, it looks very strange. I don't think this one is worth it having for the costs. Because it doesn't look like a ring growing, so. Okay, that's a bit better. I feel like there's an interruption there. They come in and then they stop. It's just kind of strange. They all stop at the same time. So I think there's some issue here somewhere. We're hitting the let's try this. See if that helps. Not really. Lower it. Okay, it's a little bit less obvious. But I still feel the interruption there. Kind of a shame. Set back to 1. Oh, interesting. Let's make sure. Okay. Okay, cool. So now I want to make the actual splashy texture. Still not super happy with the amount of rain we have on screen. This has nothing to do with it, but just like to make sure. I need to thicken it. Yeah. But if I thicken it, I definitely need to change this as well. Of course, what I can do is also make a different emitter for the rain volume, where either the particles or the shader have a different setting. So the ones closer to the camera would be thinner, and the ones further away would be thicker. So I don't like the way this is. Let's go on here. Slight elevation there. Okay. I can see a lot more rain now. Definitely don't want so much emissive. Maybe not even at all. Okay. Still feel like I'm not seeing the full extent of the rain in the back. Yeah, the ones closer to me are definitely a bit too big. Yeah, I might just do that. Make sure they fade closer to the camera. So we can come back to one of our previous materials and grab that section, so we don't need to redo it. And that section was this one here. Yeah, it's this one. Okay. That's a refraction. This is our alpha. Copy paste. Multiply. All right, let's take a look. Might need to change the value. Might not work for the rain. So let's see. No, it's actually quite decent. So because I'm only adding this to the alpha, it actually feels quite nice, because the bigger ones are still coming up with the normal size. They're actually not fitting in completely, because they're still getting the refraction. So you can have stuff being refractive even if it's fully transparent, which is what's happening. So the color, they disappear. They get 0 alpha when I'm close to the particles, but the refraction is still there, full intensity. So you actually only see the refraction of the rain, which feels quite nice. You can see, you know, like there's bigger faded ones, but the really big ones that were really distracting are just appearing as refraction. Okay, it's feeling pretty wet, which is good. I think I can speed it up the rings. So I'm gonna put 0.1 and 0.2. Yeah, it's better. All right. And I'm gonna start working on the splash shader or texture. So I've downloaded the texture from cgtextures.com, and I'm gonna use it for my rain splash. So, you know, it's such a little detail. It is so fast anyways. It's kind of a waste if I make a flipbook out of this. I'll just go ahead and change it. It's kind of hard with the background, but at the same time, it would be hard to not get the nice reflections if the background was not like that. Just tried my best to see if there was any channel that I could use. Sadly, I don't think that's really the case. So yeah, not much tricks I can do to get a clean matte out of this. So I'm gonna give big broad brush strokes to eliminate most of it. Just want to focus on this part here. Reverse, so a little more. Might be a little bit soft, but that might be okay. It's very small anyways. And lightning fast. It's gonna last like an eighth or a quarter of a second on screen anyways. I think I'm gonna do, I'm gonna switch this to be complete black and whites. So there's no nasty surprises. Also for the ripples, another thing you could do is actually set normal, to use the normal, to actually look like it's displacing the floor, not actually making the white ring. Since our floor is a little bit stylized, I think it's fine to have the white ring to make it more visible. For something more realistic, like Uncharted, maybe I would not actually make the white ring visible and just make the refraction and the normal map work together. Just want to erase some of these black edges because I don't know. Yeah, you can see there's definitely a lot of trash here. Needs to be cleaned. But I think this already as it is, I think it would work fine. Just for safety, I'm deleting a little bit more than it needs to be. Also the bottom might be a little bit too black, so I'm gonna kind of something about it. All right, so I'm also gonna change this to be square. I don't need all that space there. Save some memory. Make sure this is square, which is not. So make sure that's more set to the bottom, so we know that's the pivot point. Okay, that's fine. It's still a little bit too dark, so I'm gonna kind of brighten it up a little bit. Less contrast. I don't want to see those black parts. Might be too contrasty. It might look weird. Okay, that's cool. Let's save this. Okay. Try this. We can actually try this. The alpha might be a bit too strong like that. Let's change the color very quickly so I can see a bit better where the issues are. Some weird stuff going on there. So I might just well, we can try both actually. So I'm gonna save this as the alpha, but I might just use the RGB as the actual alpha. All right, and also need to make sure this is off or black. Save this. Going back to Unreal. Raindrop material. I'm gonna make a raindrop crown material. And I'm also gonna import the raindrop crown. Actually, in Unity, in this sense, is superior to Unreal because it actually auto imports any files that you put in the folder, which is very handy. So I actually don't need to re-import stuff. Change a few settings here. See, it has a little bit of a black halo. I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of that. Soft effects, materials, range draw chrome material. You can just come from here, just select our new one. And this could be the actual alpha. Copy it. And this could be the base color. And it could be the refraction as well, honestly. I don't think it's gonna work. So just one channel. See how this looks. It's very faint. Yeah, maybe I'll just use the RGB. As my alpha. It's probably a bit better. And I think I need to crank up this a little bit. I don't want to use the emissive. Just want to make the texture brighter. Still not really doing what I'm expecting it to do. Huh. Okay, so that's not the issue. Let's see. It's a little bit too confusing here. Just delete what I don't need. Still very dark, but well, again, let's just keep moving forward, and then we'll see how it looks. Maybe it's good in the game, maybe it's not. We'll figure it out. There's no point in me trying to fix something that actually looks good, so let's just find out if it does look good or not. All right, so here's our texture. Also need to do a size scale for life, and also pivot offset, and it's in Y minus 0.5, I think. Yes, it's definitely pretty big. So we're just going to change it here. Can actually give it a little bit of randomization. Maybe more than that. Okay, that's too much. Still a bit too much. Okay, that's better. But I kind of miss the scrolling is so fast. Variation 0.2, 0.3. No, it's too slow. So 0.12, 22. Okay, that's better. We could make a flipbook, you know, that have different variations as they grow and stuff, or actually animated. But very honestly, I think this is fine. Just small detail anyways. As long as it looks correct. I think I want to drop it in emissive. Actually might drop even the... I will see about the opacity in the color, but let's see. Maybe I'll just leave the refraction. A little bit too transparent. I still want to try making this brighter. Just see if I can get the look I want. Okay, that's a lot better. Yeah, that feels a lot more appropriate. And I'm also going to change a little bit this thing here. So I got a bit more variation on the size. That's looking cool. Splashing, splashing. 2 rings. I actually might make the rings live a bit longer. And maybe more muted. So that's the big ring, maybe the smaller ring. 0.6. 0.6. Alright, that feels a bit better. Save this. The windows are not fogging correctly. I think the material that the author of the level did is probably having some issues with the fog. So quickly double check what might be causing it. Must be just the glass. Stained glass. Well, it says it's fogged. So it should actually be working. It's kind of cool to see the rain from the inside. It's quite believable. What the tiling on the road is just out of the crazy. Just crazy tiling. But it's feeling very wet, so that's good. Okay, I don't want to select anything. Okay, that's feeling pretty good. The windows are still messed up. Yeah. See if we can quickly figure out what's causing it. So it does look like it's from the windows. So let's try something quick here. Does it fix it? Maybe. Looks fixed to me. Oh, it's because it's not. It's actually not. That's funny. It's not compiled. That's why it's not giving the error. All right. So moving forward, it's fine. I'm happy with the results of that. I'm happy with the results of this. The rain is looking good. So this needs some splashing too. So I'm going to grab one of these emitters. So this is speed rain floor. I'm actually going to do what I mentioned last time. This is... So it's pretty much 500 by 500. Make a duplicate of this. Control W. Unreal. Where did it go? Oh, here we go. I'm gonna put it here. I'm gonna open this guy here. And initial location, it's seated. That's good. For some reason, it's not seated on their one, which I want it to be. And I want to make sure that this one is in Y. It's 10. Minus 10. Okay, that's it. Kind of. We can make it a little bit bigger, just a tiny bit. Okay. And spawning, I want to spawn like 50, and I don't want this. Actually, I probably don't even want this, honestly. Might give some issues. Make sure it's on the surface. Raise it a little bit. Very hard to see it. Okay, that's more like it, but too much. So probably add some rotation as well. Maybe not so much. Just a little bit. And change the name. So it's 500 by 10 or something like that. By 15. Okay. Might be a bit too big. Still might be too big. Okay, that's a bit more like it. So, but also I feel like I need to improve this a little bit. Maybe 35. Oh, I forgot to do this one. It's 35. Maybe it's too much. It might be a little bit too much. Yes, it's too much. Let's do 20 minus 20. Okay, I think that's fine. looks good. Cool. And hopefully, when I Control W, cool, perfect. Where did they go? I think they might be sunk in a little bit too much. Okay. Okay, that's cool. Okay. And there's some floating ones here that I really don't like. Might sunk those. Okay. That's better. So they seem to be working too. Still some of them are kind of bugging me here. I don't know if it's these ones. It's not these ones. It's those here. Those there. It's kind of bugging me. So I'm still gonna push them a little bit, try to fix it. You know, if I'm really struggling with this, maybe what I'll do is just make another variant that's like 200 by 15, or in this case 200 by 20, because that's what it is. I think it's fine. Kind of stops there. Move it up a little bit. See if I can do the most with the least amount of different emitters, so I don't have to tweak many of them afterwards if I need to, like making LODs or anything. But sometimes, you know, if I see I'm wasting too much time here, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna make a duplicate and say this one is 200 by 20, and make sure I change it here. It's actually probably not 200, it's more like 500, but just so I know. Control W. Alternatively, I could make an emitter that creates particles on collision. So it would actually collide with the mesh and spawn appropriately. But, you know, that'll be more expensive, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I do a lot of expensive stuff all the time. But for this exercise, I don't think it's necessary. Okay, that's much better. Cool. We're pretty much done. You know, I could be setting LODs and stuff like that, but I already shown you how to do it, so you can do it. And there's some leaves falling. The leaves could get I could get fogging on the leaves, see if that's going to help it. Sometimes it doesn't really help particles fog, but we'll try it. And also a bit more expensive, of course, but we'll try it. Could even make the leaves blow in this direction, you know, it's a little bit more interesting. first I'll just want to check if I can actually do that. It already has fog per pixel. Oof. Okay, I think this might fix it, but I just made the scene 10 times more expensive. But hey, it's a portfolio piece, so we want to make sure this looks good. We need to have fun. If we're not in production at the moment. Yeah, see, it fixed it. Because otherwise, you know, you'll have plenty of time with the programmers and saying your stuff is too expensive. And also delete the water because it's not helping the shot. That water is not helping either, so I'm also going to delete it. If I could. Maybe this one? Alright, there you go. Okay. Cool. So, final touches. Falling leaves here. There's something here. Okay. Looks interesting, but not really what I envisioned. So what's up with this? This weird thing here. I wish I had the noise from Unity here. It's a bit better than this. It's really annoying. In fact, it keeps resetting. Just thinking, I should just use particles, not particle geometry for this. Where's my constant acceleration? Okay, maybe I'll just put some different value here. Okay, that's better. Still feels a bit weird. Okay, that's better. Still maybe too many. I'll probably need to make the rain also a bit more slanted. Which might be cool. So, okay, that's better. Even though some of them are very slow. So let's try something like this. And it also gave some random values here. It's not helping to show the weight of the leaves. Oh, there's a minimum here. Yeah, that looks very weird. Okay, let's see. I don't like the the way they bounce sometimes. It looks so weird. Okay, that's a bit better. See if maybe I can add a little bit of rotation to this without making it look super weird. Yeah, it still feels very strange. I'm gonna add a rotation rate. We should have that already, actually. So I'm just gonna increase this. This one. See how it looks. Yeah. Okay. See how it looks. Nah, it's too much. Still too much. Okay, that's better. The particles are still very transparent too. So what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make sure I move them away so we can see them a little bit afterwards for our shot. Okay, that's looking cool. I think for this shot, I'm gonna make the leaves a little bit less saturated. And darker. while it's compiling, I'm gonna make another material, call it clouds, I guess. Yeah, the leaves are still a bit too... So I'm going to actually grab the color from the environment, which it didn't work. I'll try that again. Okay. Click OK. See how it looks. Try to tint it a little bit more like the color of the fog. I don't think it really did. I don't think it really worked. Computer, I think it's because I'm recording as well. It's having a hard time. It's taking a while to compile and save all this. Also multitasking a lot, you know, doing a lot of stuff at the same time. And that might feel a bit better. And for some reason they look a bit cut. Seems like there's a shader error or something. Oh, it's the rain. Okay. The rain is rendering in front of it. Oh, no, it's fixed. Okay. Some visual error. Okay, that's feeling a bit better. That's cool. Might be a little bit too many leaves, I think. Spawn 5. Oh, there's a burst. And maybe we can increase the speed. Wait, is this ones? Yes. So nah. Feels a bit weird. It's looking pretty cool. The last step, I would say, and we probably can use this one. Let's add some dust here, or I should say some clouds, some fog moving across. I'm not sure, or steam. I don't know what would be the correct term of it. Let's go ahead and do something about it. Maybe we can use that one over there, or maybe the dust we did from the beginning. Yeah, this one is going to work nicely, so we can just do it. Use that one. It's going to be a very simple shader. It's going to be the last material in our course. And it's going to be very simple. And I would use GPU particles for this, but since I cannot use it yet, the randomization, I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to use the normal standard CPU particles. We can try it lit for now. It's been a while, so I forgot if this material actually has alpha channel or not. Okay, very simple material. Just gonna make sure that it receives fog. Yeah, why not? Why not? Okay, so it does seem like it doesn't have an alpha channel. Oh, and I also got the wrong one there. Okay, let's try that. See how it looks. Gonna rename this. Looks like we have another one. I think this is the correct one. This one, not sure. Oh, actually. Shoot, that was the right one. Alright, so, no biggie. Yeah. Also, make sure this is a pretty big size. I'm gonna copy the speed. And orbit. Maybe not the orbit, actually. Yeah, definitely not like that. Yeah, I don't think I need the orbit for this. It's gonna be very simple. It's not gonna move much. Seems like I've made a mistake in the place where I placed it. Yeah, I did the material and textures, so I'm gonna cut this. Move it from there to there. Now it's in the correct place. I'm gonna apply it. It's gonna be a lot bigger. Probably something more like this. And I tint it as the color of the sky. Cool, we got something there. Oh yeah, and I definitely want a depth blend. That fade, sorry. That blend is probably the name from Naughty Dog. Cool. And I'll go a little bit stronger with this, so it looks... Does this do anything? Yes. Okay, that's too much. It's too much. That's too much. That's a bit not enough. Yeah, I need to change the gamma on that. Also, oh, I don't know if it actually changed it. Yeah, okay, it did. Okay. I want to make sure I've started at 0 at 0.3. It's 1. 0.7. It's 1, and at 1 is 0. So it's fading nicely. I can also increase the size over life. So it's gonna be 2. Also, I think it's moving way too fast. So I'm gonna change this. 30, 10. Oh, interesting. I forgot this. That's why it might look so small. So 2 by 2. Just run them. I don't know if I actually need this, but 4. Actually clipping it now. Yeah, this is actually not doing what I want. They all seem cut. So did I do something wrong here? Oh yes, of course. That's why. Alright, so this is sprite number 1. It's very, very soft. And if I add the sub-UV image index and I put -0.5 to 4, it's gonna give the random ones. And I can also do some sort of, let's use a spherical, because we haven't really used it. It's way moving too fast. I mean, there's a lot of wind, but maybe it's too much. Also want to make sure that, okay, that's way too much. Maybe 5. Actually, that was a mistake there. So it's softer now, but still probably too many particles. Yeah, it's still very intense. Just gonna double size. I want something that you almost never don't even see it. Okay, that's looking pretty decent. And I'm also gonna change. Sorry, Sphere, you didn't last very long. I want what's the axis? It's actually Y. I don't need so much. 150 minus 200. So we have a little bit more depth in layers. It's not everything in one place. Okay, it's now a little bit too intense. And as usual, I can add the fade when I get close. It's a little bit too intense. I kind of like the fact it really is kind of all over the place. So maybe I'll try to keep it as it is and just change the opacity value here, just to make sure that I'm actually controlling it with a particle color. Perfect. Cool. So you can definitely feel like there's something moving. Maybe it's still a little bit too on the intense side. I'm gonna change the size a little bit, maybe. I'll revert back. See if that helps. Okay, I can see it now. Trying to see why. This one is not. Try to catch it. Try to pull it up a little bit. Okay, here we go. It's still using the old one. I'm going to delete it. I'll try to get the this tiny ones. These ones here. Tiny ones. Whoa. It's the 200s. Control W and duplicate. Rotate it a little bit. And it did not work. I need to kind of raise these guys a little bit. Type 200 there, so I know which ones it is. Okay, that's better. And make sure it's like this. Cool. We've made a very rainy scene. And I think it looks pretty cool. Completely converted a very sunny environment into quite a wet atmosphere. So yeah, here's our final results. And this concludes our course. It was a lot of work. Well, and I hope you guys at least learned quite a few things. I've seen that a lot of you did major improvements since the very beginning. Very proud of you guys. It's very impressive, honestly. The amount of work you put into it, and just how fast you guys grown from, some of you didn't know very little or nothing about effects, and now, like, in the last week, I've done the Q&A and homework revision, and it's like such a difference. It's like crazy. Some of you were already pretty good, and hopefully now you're better, or at least have new ideas of how to achieve stuff. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it, because I also quite enjoyed it, even though it was a lot of work. Yeah, so that's my final words. And just, hope you love VFX even more from now on.